Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're jumping straight into Hebrews chapter 8.
Okay.
It's a really interesting passage because it draws such a stark contrast, doesn't it? Something old being replaced by something new. And, well, the text argues something much better.
Yeah, definitely. It hits on priests, sanctuaries, and ultimately the covenants themselves.
So let's start with the priest figure. The description is quite grand.
It really is. I mean, this isn't your typical priest serving down here. The picture is elevated significantly.
Right. It says he's seated at the right hand of the throne of the majesty in heaven. That location, the right hand, it speaks volumes, right? Authority, completed work.
Exactly. And he serves, the text says, in the true tabernacle set up by the Lord, not by man. So, a heavenly reality, not a human construction.
Which is then immediately contrasted with the earthly priests.
Their service. It's described as happening in a sanctuary that's merely a copy and shadow of what is in heaven.
Like a blueprint versus the actual building.
Sort of, yeah. And it even references how that earthly setup, the tabernacle, was built following that specific pattern shown you on the mountain, Moses.
So earthly copy, heavenly original. And this new high priest, his ministry in that true place. The text calls it superior.
Superior. And it explains why, too. It's because the covenant he mediates, the deal he represents, is also superior to the old one. And it's founded on better promises.
Better promises. The passage basically says, look, if the first covenant had worked perfectly, there'd be no need to look for a second one.
Right. But it suggests there was an issue. And interestingly, the text pins it on the people. God found fault with the people, saying they did not remain faithful to my covenant.
So that's the setup for needing something new, according to this chapter.
Precisely. And that leads directly into the description of this new covenant. God says a time is coming to make this new agreement.
With Israel and Judah, yeah. But crucially, it will not be like the covenant I made with their forefathers. That's the key difference highlighted.
And how it's different is, well, pretty radical compared to the old system described.
Instead of laws on stone tablets, external rules.
Yeah, God says, I will put my laws in their minds and write them on their hearts. That's a fundamental shift inward, internal motivation, not just external compliance.
It really is. And the relationship sounds much more direct. I will be their God and they will be my people.
And it goes further, this promise of direct knowledge. All will know me. From the least important to the most important kind of thing. You won't need your neighbor to teach you about God, apparently.
That's a huge claim. And then there's the forgiveness aspect, which seems central given the earlier point about faithfulness.
Absolutely central. I will forgive their wickedness and will remember their sins no more.
Remember them no more. That's powerful. Complete forgiveness, wiped clean, built into this new covenant.
It suggests a permanence that perhaps wasn't perceived in the same way before. And the chapter wraps this all up quite bluntly.
It does. By calling this covenant new, the author concludes the first one is now obsolete.
Obsolete. And what is obsolete and aging will soon disappear. It's a very strong, definitive statement about this transition.
So the picture painted here is a clear movement from earthly, external, maybe conditional, tied to a copy.
To heavenly, internal, seemingly unconditional, linked to the real thing, the true tabernacle.
It really makes you think, what does it actually mean for laws to be written on your heart? How different is that?
And how does that promise of sins being remembered no more change the whole dynamic compared to the struggles described under the first covenant? It's a different foundation.
Definitely. And just that final thought from the text itself, calling something established, something historical like the first covenant, obsolete and aging. That framing, well, it raises some interesting questions about progress and fulfillment in the way this passage sees things, doesn't it?
It certainly does. Leaves you with something to ponder about how purpose unfolds according to this text.